Imagine waiting several months to do your driving test. The day finally comes, you turn up to do your test, but the examiner refuses to take you. Oh, can that actually happen? Well, in this case, yes, it did. And I'm even going to share a short story with you about what happened to one of my students a couple of years ago. And hopefully this won't happen to you. So we'll come back to what happened with my student in a moment. But what reminded me of this was this post that I saw this morning. This guy says this: examiner refused to do a test. He was a former colleague at my job. Pretty much what the title says. Just my luck. Out of all the examiners I could have been assigned to, it had to be the one that used to work at my current workplace a few years back. Is this even allowed? He said he reported it to the manager and I'd have a test date rebooked, but I'm really skeptical if this is actually a thing. He said that because he knows me, he wasn't allowed to conduct my test, and because there were no other examiners available, I was unable to take my test. Are there any examiners here who can clarify this? I'm so annoyed because God knows when I'll get a test and whether or not I'll get a decent time. By some luck, I was able to get an 11:11 a.m. slot, which is when the roads are clear. What are my chances that I'll luck out and get a similar time? If an assessor knows you, it's going to be a conflict of interest if they take you on a test. So in answer to this guy's question, is this a real thing? Yes, it absolutely is, and probably should be. When you think about it, imagine if you pass your driving test. You go and tell all your friends and family, oh, I just passed my driving test. And, as luck would have it, I had Uncle John. What are the odds? Well, then the obvious question in everyone's mind is, did you actually pass your test because you're a good driver and a safe driver? Or did you pass your test because your uncle assessed you, he felt sorry for you? Or he didn't want to cop the flack from his sister, who's your mum, because they're related. So the test has to be completely unbiased. Obviously, if you're tested by somebody who you know, it's not going to be unbiased. Or if it's somebody you used to work with, like in this guy's case, well, that's probably not going to be unbiased. And to be honest, what if it was somebody you knew, but you didn't get along with? Do you think they're going to give you a fair test? Possibly not. So yeah, it is a real thing. And the rule generally is, if an assessor knows you or is related to you, they can't test you. It's not fair. Imagine if that got out at school or among your work friends. Oh, I passed my test and my uncle was my assessor. People are going to want to do an inquiry, an investigation. Did the uncle unfairly assess this person because he's related? And that's a fair call. I've actually had a couple of students in the past who have told me that they know one of the assessors. Oh, we know one of the assessors down there. My dad and him work together. He goes to our church. She's my auntie. He's my uncle, whatever. But these students already know that that assessor can't test them. So yes, it is a real thing, and yes, it is a known thing. I don't even need to say to the student, oh, I'm not sure if he's your uncle, if he can assess you. They tell me. They're like, oh, my uncle's one of the assessors at the Department of Transport. He's told me that he can't assess me. He's not allowed to. It's against policy. I've actually had a couple of students where they're like, I know one of the assessors, and in actual fact, he's done some driving lessons with me. How cool is that? Well, of course that's allowed, because a driving instructor is not an assessor. They instruct, they help, they teach. I'm a driving instructor. My job is to help somebody to pass their driving test, and I'll do all that I can to help them to achieve that. Driving assessors are not there to teach you. They're not there to help you. Their job is not to assist you in your drive. If you're making mistakes in your driving test, their job is not to be like, oh, do you want to have another crack at that? Or what could have you done differently? Or don't forget, this is a stop sign coming up. Make sure you come to a complete stop. They're not allowed to do that. They're not there to help you, to guide you, to instruct you. They're there to assess you. So if you do have a family friend or a relative who is a driving assessor, yes, they can help you with driving lessons leading up to your test. Sure, they can take you out on a Sunday or after work and do some driving lessons with you and give you as much help as they can. But when it comes to your test day, they're not allowed to take you out on the test. That's not fair. Now here's the story I wanted to share with you and how I had an experience that went pretty badly. So I had this young girl a couple of years ago doing her driving test. I had done a few lessons with her. It wasn't until about lesson 3 or 4 where she actually said to me, oh yeah, my auntie works at the Department of Transport. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Who is she? She told me the name. Now this auntie wasn't actually an assessor, but she was a manager. She was quite high up. So she didn't get to make the decision about the assessment. She wasn't going to do the assessment, but she was in management at the Department of Transport where this young girl was doing her assessment. Now, on her test day, I actually made a little bit of a joke with the assessor who was taking her out for her driving test. And by the way, this was her second attempt. So she'd already done her test once previously, failed. Now she's coming back to do it the second time. As she was getting into the car, I jokingly said to the assessor, "Be kind to this one. This is so-and-so's niece." That's all I said. It was lighthearted. It was a joke. Now she comes back from the test, which by the way was totally unbiased because she had one of the other assessors. She passed her driving test. Yay. But when she was at the counter signing the paperwork, the boss lady comes over, says, "Brent, can I have a word with you, please?" Marches me off into a little room, a little office, like I'm some kind of naughty school kid, and then lets me have it. "Brent, how dare you tell the assessors that she's my niece?" I'm like, I didn't know it was a secret. What's the problem?" "I didn't want anyone to know she was my niece." I said, "Well, maybe you should have mentioned that to me, or maybe the niece should have said to me, 'Oh, so-and-so is my auntie, but please don't tell anybody, don't say anything.'" There was no mention of me having to keep it secret. So that's not a me problem, that's a you problem. She then says, "I wanted her test to be fair and totally unbiased. I wanted her to pass this test purely on her own merit and skill and experience." To which I then said, "That's a you problem. Because what I'm hearing is you don't trust your assessors to make a fair and unbiased decision on the outcome of somebody's test if they know that they're related to you. That says to me that you don't trust your assessors. And that's a you problem." Like you, I would like to think that assessors at any Department of Transport are going to make a fair, unbiased, unclouded judgment on whether somebody can drive to the road standard or not. That's what I'd like to think. So don't drag me into a little office like I'm some naughty school kid. You're not my boss. I don't work for you. I teach students to drive and to pass their driving test on skill and ability. I bring them to you as a government organisation with the understanding that you're going to give them a fair assessment. Now, if you're now coming to me and saying, "Oh, but if one of my assessors knows that that's my niece, they may not give her a fair assessment, they may want to pass her because I'm their boss," that's a you problem. So while this does sound unfair, like the guy asking, "Is this a real thing?" Like literally, because I used to work with the guy, he's not allowed to assess me. Is that even a thing? Yes, it is a thing, and rightfully so, because it could potentially open up for some level of favoritism or some kind of clouded judgment if the person doesn't like you. So to make it fair, across the board, they just say to the assessors, "Look, if you know the person who's doing the driving test, if you're related to them, you work with somebody, there's some kind of connection, let us know. You won't be testing that person. To make it fair, we'll give that candidate to one of the other assessors." That's the cleanest thing to do. So yes, it is a thing. So how could this be a problem to you? Well, obviously, if you're going to do a driving test, ask yourself the question, do I know any of the assessors? Do any of the assessors know me? Do any of the assessors know any of my family members? Do they work with my mum or work with my dad? Do they go to church together? Do they play darts on Wednesday night? If there is any shadow of a doubt, then be upfront before your test date. When you go in to book your test, let them know and just say, "I want to book my test. There could be a conflict of interest if that guy's my assessor because my dad works with that guy or he's my uncle," and they'll mark it down and they'll make sure that you don't get that person so that it's not a problem on the test day. Now, just to give you some clarity and some confidence around this is not a common thing. It's very uncommon. Literally, over the last 6 years as a driving instructor, I've taken hundreds and hundreds of students to do their PDA test. I've probably come up against this 2 or 3 times, and other than the experience that I had that I just explained, it's never been a problem because the student had already known that they have a friend or a work colleague or a relative or somebody who's doing the assessment. So we've been able to sort that out long before the test date. Even in this one situation that I just explained to you, it wasn't the boss lady who was doing the assessment, It was the fact that I mentioned to the assessor that she was related to the boss lady. The boss lady thought that was going to be a problem because she couldn't trust her assessors to make a fair call. That became a her problem. So the reality is, yes, it's a thing, but it's not a thing you should worry about. You're probably not just going to turn up on your test day and be like, oh, this guy, I used to work with him, I know him. And even if it did, it could probably be sorted there and then on the day. Unfortunately, the guy who put this post up didn't have that opportunity. But in most test centres, 2 or 3 assessors go out together at the same time. And so it could literally be a conversation along the lines of, hey, I can't have this guy as my assessor. And then 2 of the assessors should be able to swap learner drivers. It shouldn't be a problem. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've got any other questions or concerns about your driving test, and I'll try and answer them. I'll see you in the next video.